Yo, what's up? This is Kyle from Soundblind Drums, and I'm going to give you a video walkthrough today of our newest drum library, Powerkit. Powerkit is the signature drum library of Matt Guillermo, who plays in End and the Acacia Strain. He's an insane drummer, and he's also a producer and an engineer. So late 2023, I flew down to New Jersey, met up with Matt, and we spent a week in the Graphic Nature Studio cabin to sample his signature drum setup. All of his kit elements that he plays in both End and the Acacia Strain sampled meticulously, and it sounds awesome. So let's get into it. So when you first load up Powerkit, this is the screen that you're going to be met with on the default tab, which is the Drum View tab. What we're looking at here is Matt's signature setup that he uses in both End and the Acacia Strain inside of the Graphic Nature cabin. Looking at the Drum View, you can see that each kit element has a little drop-down menu on it. You can click those to unload drum elements, which will remove them immediately from all mic sources. And then you can click it again to reload it. You can also click on each kit element to hear what it sounds like, which will change based on the preset that you have loaded. This is the initial preset that you will hear as soon as you load up Powerkit. So it sounds awesome out of the box. That's the default preset, and there are 39 of them. When you click on the drop-down menu for the snare, you will be able to pick between both of Matt's snare options, which are the DW brass snare and the VK brass snare. The VK is a slightly higher tuned snare, and the DW is a lower tuned snare, so you can really pick what works best for your mixes. Moving on to the mixer, clicking mixer at the top is going to bring you to Powerkit's fully featured DAW style mixer. Powerkit's mixer is divided into two sections. The top section being the mixer section, which includes a fader, pan, mute, solo, polarity invert, and routing. And the bottom section being parameters. What that means is when you have a channel selected in the mixer, you are now affecting the parameters for only that channel. From top down, you have your pan option or a width knob at the top. If it is a mono source, you have a pan option. If it's a stereo source, you have a width option. You are also given a fader with a decibel reading to show you the corresponding level that that channel is currently at. You are given a mute button, a solo button, and a polarity invert button as well. And below, there is a routing menu that will populate once you click it. We're not going to go over routing at this part of the video, but we will later. There's going to be a timestamp in the description or the comments. So if you're concerned with routing, you can go right there. Going over the parameter section of the mixer, we'll stay on the snare mic for now. You have 4 different sections down here that you can further modify the sound of the snare with. You have a full-on plugin insert option with 9 built-in plugins and 3 slots within that plugin insert section to really carve and craft your mix however you want of Powerkit internally, which is really cool. You also have a reverb sends option. Powerkit has 2 built-in reverbs that are active. The room verb is an IR-based reverb, and the plate verb is a built-in reverb plate. You also have an envelope option to really adjust the attack, hold, and decay of whatever channel you're currently selecting. And you have a tune option to shift pitch internally of whatever source you're trying to tune. So to show you how powerful the plugin section is, right now I currently have a preset that comes with Powerkit loaded, and we are going to change some of the EQ options. Here what I'm going to do is ask you to pay attention to the ring of the snare. I have really dialed in the snare already, but I'm going to change the low mid frequency cut to more of a boost. So what I was doing there was just changing the low mid frequency, and it instantly changed the tone of the snare. All of the presets inside of Powerkit are going to be different, but that's just a quick little introduction to what you can do. So for the plugin inserts window down here, there are 3 columns. The first column is your view column, which clicking any of these squares is going to change what is populated in this plugin insert window right here. The drop-down menu, the middle, is clickable, and you will be able to see all of the plugin inserts that are included with Powerkit that you can instantly swap and change and start to adjust in real time. And on the right-hand side here, you have a active or bypass button. When it is illuminated, it is active, and when it's off, it's bypassed. We're going to go over all of the included plugin inserts at a later time in the video and show you all the parameters of those. So again, those will probably be in the description or the comment section with a timestamp, and if you want to go there, feel free to do that. The reverb send section, pretty straightforward. You're just choosing how much signal you want to send of the selected channel into that specific reverb. So if we want to have the snare have a bit more room verb, we can do it just like that. You can do the same with the plate reverb. And again, we will go over all of the reverb options at a later time in the video. There's a timestamp in the comments or the description. The envelope section is a AHD envelope, which is 3 parameters. You have attack, you have hold, and you have decay. You can also bypass or activate this envelope per channel to really A/B if you like the envelope that you've crafted. All right, moving on to the sub mixer. The sub mixer does function identically to the mixer. So it's the same concept of being able to click on a specific channel, and then when you have that selected, you are impacting that mic's parameter section below. The sub mixer is the individual mic sources of the kick, the snare, the megabell, and the room ambient channels. Currently in the sub mixer by default, all of these channels are routed directly back into the mixer. We'll talk more about this in the routing section, but you can multi-out and route all of the mics individually, or you can route them just as they are in the mixer in your DAW. For both the kick and the snare, there is an additional option here, which is kick trig and snare trig. Powerkit allows you to drop one-shot samples and blend them in to your mix. So we're going to go over the one-shots and trigger controls later in the video. So you can look in the comments or description, find that timestamp, and click that, and we'll go over them there. So moving on to the bleed page. If you click on bleed at the top, you're going to be met with a lot of adjustable knobs. And what this is it is a very quick and easy way to adjust all of the kit element balances inside any of Powerkit's ambient microphones. So the sets of ambient microphones for Powerkit are cymbals, overheads, room close, room far, room low, room high, and room stairs. You can get between all of them by navigating through page 1 or 2 pretty quickly. And what we've done is we've incorporated both a mute and a solo button on the bleed page. So you don't have to bounce back and forth from the bleed to the mixer page. You can simply click on solo on a source such as room close For example, you can click play, and then you can start adjusting these parameters to craft your room close ambient mics in real time. So right there, I was able to lower the kick, raise the snare, raise the right crash very quickly. Didn't have to bounce back and forth. We have also introduced a link button. And what this does is if you know that you want to lower the kick in all of the ambient mic sources of Powerkit, you can click global bleed link up at the top, and then you can simply move the kick, and it's going to adjust the balance of the kick in every single channel of ambient microphones for Powerkit. So it's a very quick way to affect the entire hit element in all of the ambient mic sources. You don't have to use the global bleed link. When you click it, you'll see that it's active and the link buttons will appear. Deactivating it, you can also independently select just whatever mic sources you do want to impact. So you can click room close, room far, and now I can adjust the kit element that I want, and it's only impacting those two. Moving on to the master effects page. And what this is this is an 8-channel plug-in slot drum bus for your entire mix, all internally inside of Powerkit. What we have here at the section below are the 9 plug-in inserts that are included with Powerkit, and the 10th slot is just an empty slot if you wish to get rid of whatever is currently loaded. So up here we have a name slot where if I click something, so I will load up solid EQ. The EQ will populate in this little tab right here. There is a bypass button, just like in a normal DAW, so you can kind of A/B what it's doing. And down here you have each slot. So you have 8 individual slots, and going back to whatever slot, you will be able to see what's loaded in that slot. So we'll go over the plugins right now. So the first one that's up is the solid EQ. This is a 4-band EQ that has a low filter, low mid filter, high mid filter, and a high filter. You can disengage on the low filter and the high filter the shelf options, and it will act as a band instead of a shelf. You are able to adjust the Q parameter for both the low mid and the high mid filters. Next up is the strain compressor. It is an FET style compressor. It has ratios of 1, 2, 4, 6, 10, and 20. And it also includes a mix knob, which allows for parallel compression. At the bottom here, you also have a gain reduction meter so you can see what's going on. Next up is the Supercharger GT. It is a super powerful saturator and compressor. And on the left side of this plugin, you have your input and you have your saturate. On the right side, you have your character, your output, and your mix levels. The middle section is the compression section, and there are some additional parameters for each. The saturate knob right here goes from 1 to 10, and you can change from mild to medium to hot, and that will significantly change the amount of saturation and what it's doing based on how far you've pumped up saturate. Character option over here acts in a similar way. There's a fat option, which is a bit more of a scooped option. There is a warmth option, which acts a little bit like a tape kind of thing, but it does a bit more of a high-end shelf kind of roll-off. And there is a bright option, which ducks the low end a tiny bit, but adds a really nice sheen to the mix. On the left side here, you can also change how Supercharger GT is processing the audio. There are 3 modes. There's stereo, dual mono, and mid-side. On the right side here It also includes a mix option, which allows you to run supercharger in parallel. Next up is solid compressor. Solid compressor is a bus compressor with a distinct sound. There are attack values, release values. You have a ratio of 2, 4, or 10. You have a gain reduction meter. You have makeup gain, and you have a threshold to really dial in exactly what you want out of this compressor. It also has a mix knob, so you can run this in parallel and do some parallel compression if you'd like. Next up is Transient Designer. It is a 3-knob plugin, very simple: attack, sustain, and output. Using the attack knob, either plus or minus, is going to either reduce or increase attack. Same with sustain. It'll either reduce sustain or increase sustain. I find increasing the sustain on a Transient Designer is how you get a lot more body out of your rooms, out of your drum shells. Use the output knob to kind of match the input and output signal level so you're not peaking or clipping anything. Next up is distortion. It's a tube and transistor distortion module. So you can select either tube or transistor up here, and then there are 3 knobs: simply a drive knob, a damping knob, and an output knob. The damping knob is going to reduce high frequency content of the distortion to kind of bring it more into a middle and low range frequency spectrum, and the drive is going to change how much distortion is happening. And then after you adjust those, you can level match with the output knob. Next up is the saturator, which is a super powerful saturator inside of Powerkit. There are 3 modes of saturation. They are classic, drums, and enhanced. They all act pretty similar, but you can tell they're impacting the low end differently. So depending on where your bass or your guitars sit, or how much low end you kind of are currently at with your drum mix already, you may want to adjust what mode you're in. Sometimes the drums mode isn't actually the one that you want to use. Sometimes it's classic, so you just kind of got to use your judgment on what one sounds the best in the current context. But it's a very simple 1-knob option, and you can boost up the saturation until it sounds good, and then you can level match whatever the plugin is doing level wise from the saturation with the output knob. Next up is the Warmth Tape Machine, which is a tape emulation built into Powerkit. There are 3 knobs on Warmth Tape Machine. They are drive, warmth, and output. Drive is going to push how much of the tape saturation is being put onto the mix, and warmth is going to be a low-end boost or a low-end reduction. So if you really like what a certain amount of drive of the tape machine is doing, but you find it's just a tiny bit too much low end, you can kind of just reduce the warmth there by a tiny bit, and then you've got the best of both worlds. Vice versa also applies. If you want the low end doing a bit more, you can boost up the warmth based on where your drive is at, and then whatever level changing has been done through the plugin, afterwards you can do the output matching with the output knob. The final plugin inside of Powerkit is the limiter, and limiter is a brick wall limiter, and it's a 4-knob plugin with a gain reduction meter, and you can adjust the threshold, you can adjust the release, the ceiling, and the output. Changing the threshold and release will change the amount of limiting that is happening and kind of change the distortion characteristic of what's happening inside the limiter. But the default settings of limiter will basically allow you to be worry-free that any audio is going to go over minus 0.3. Stop anything on your drum bus from peaking. So I've loaded up one of the presets built in the Powerkit, which is 03B Power Alt Kick 2, the VK snare option with less compression. So I'm going to play this and then I'll just mess around with some of the master effects so you can hear these plugins working in real time in the stereo out mode of Powerkit. So that just added a very cool character to the drums, a lot more punchy. I feel like it gives it a bit more energy. It brings them back into the mix a bit, glues everything together. And that was super quick, already based on a preset that is inside of Powerkit. So going off the same preset, I'm just going to adjust the Supercharger GT module that's in slot 3 so you can hear what this does as well. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to boost up the character a bit and just change the modes from fat and warmth and bright so you can see what these really do. So you can really hear that fat scoops the sound quite a bit, warmth makes it a bit darker, and bright makes it very bright and transient. Obviously the character is cranked up to 10 here so you can hear what's happening in an extreme, but when you blend this in the right amount, it's a very powerful way to just take one of the presets that are inside of Powerkit already, load up Supercharger on one of the plugin slots, and just instantly change the overall feel of the preset to match exactly what you need. So next up, we have the Grooves page. Clicking on Grooves at the top, you're going to be met with 2 sections. The top section being the MIDI Groove controls and the playback and drag and drop, and the bottom section being the MIDI Groove file browser. Powerkit comes bundled with MIDI Grooves Volume 2, Matt Guglielmo, and he has written 80 plus MIDI grooves that are bundled inside Powerkit. There are additionally 2 end songs from start to finish and 2 the Acacia Strain songs from start to finish. And all of these grooves are velocity optimized for Powerkit as well. So if we click on the file browser here, you can see that we have Matt's drum grooves, we have the Acacia Strain songs, and we have end songs. Double-clicking on one of the MIDI files will start to play it. You can play the MIDI groove playback speed at real time, which is 1x, double time, or half time to really kind of see where the MIDI groove is going to work for you. You can also navigate by clicking the previous or next button on the MIDI groove controls, and you can click play or stop to play or stop. The MIDI drag and drop window here is for once you've selected and listened back to the MIDI groove that you like, you simply can drag and drop your audio workstation, and you will see the MIDI appear in real time. And you can see the entire song optimized for Powerkit. Matt's drum grooves are organized into 3 different folders. They are full ideas, beats, and fills. Full ideas are 16 to 32 bars of an entire idea that you could base a song around at the specific BPM that it says beside the name. The second folder is a beats section. There are a bunch of different drum beats that Matt has written that he would play in both of his bands that you are able to kind of sift through and find what you're looking for and really pick the structure of the part that you're trying to write. And then the third section is fills. There are a lot of fills at a bunch of different BPMs, and a lot of them are crazy. They are very unique and dynamic fills that will help you come up with cool transitions and riff ideas. So yeah, go through those. Really cool. Bunch of different BPMs. What are we at now? We're at 150. I'll try to find one at 160. Kind of accurate. So yeah, as long as your DAW is in the ballpark of 10 BPM of these file name BPMs, you'll get like a pretty accurate representation of the speed that Matt was writing that fill for. And then once you have selected your fill, once you've selected your fill, you can go to your workstation. And then you can drag and drop from the file name. And then you can actually still import the tempo if you want. So you don't really need to worry about the tempo. All of the MIDI files do have BPMs embedded in them. So if you would rather just double click, drag it into your DAW, you do that as well. A full MIDI Groove file list for MIDI Grooves Volume 2 Matt Guillermo is available on the Soundblind Drums site, on the Powerkit page and the MIDI Groove bundle page. So if you want to read through all of those, you can do that there. All right, so now we'll dive into the reverb part of Powerkit. So as I mentioned before, reverb in Powerkit is run by a room verb, which is an IR-based verb, and a plate verb, which is a plate. To get to the reverb menu, you can get there in either the mixer or the sub-mixer. At the bottom left, there is a little reverb tab. When you click that, a pop-up window appears, and you have your reverb settings for Powerkit internally. This window here is separated into two sides. You have the left side being your room verb, the right side being your plate verb. Here you can change the actual level of each reverb by using the fader, and you will be able to see a nice little decibel reading as well. You can bypass and completely turn off the internal reverbs here by clicking the bypass button. And if you want to enable them, you can click to do so. The plate and the room verb have different parameters that you can adjust. So here, the room verb, since it's IR based, you can adjust the early reflections and the late reflections, both the size, high pass and low pass, to really get a gauge of where you want your reverbs to be sitting in the mix, EQ wise. You can change the pre-delay of when the room verb happens and the pre-delay of when the plate verb happens. You can also, for the room reverb, enable this auto gain, which I highly recommend. It's a new feature inside of Kontakt that we've implemented, and what that allows you to do is scroll through our impulse response library, I want to say. And what that is once you click the impulse response drop-down menu up here, you're given up to 110 different IR options for making a drum mix. Some of them are very experimental and don't sound anything like a normal drum mix. And some of them are classic reverbs like the L480s, and you've got all of these options to choose from. It also includes Matt's signature IR Powerkit room, so you can have that at your disposal as well, which is really cool. And what you can do is actually play the kit and kind of turn up the reverb, and then just kind of jump through all the reverbs with this next and previous buttons. This is gonna instantly change the IR that's loaded that fast, and you're gonna be able to hear it in real time. So I'll do that really quick. So I'm gonna boost up the reverb to like an insane amount just so you can hear what's happening. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you can see, it dramatically changes the tone and vibe of what the preset inside Powerkit is already doing. You can really get a lot of cool results using these built-in IRs and starting to adjust whatever reverb works best for your mix. So you're no longer constrained by just whatever reverbs are given to you. You can now go through and say, I like everything except I think the reverb can be a tiny bit different. And then once you've selected the thing that sounds best to you, you can also start to adjust the size of it. And you can also adjust the low shelf and damping of the plate verb to really kind of mesh both reverbs together and work harmoniously through the mix. So next up is the one-shots functionality for Powerkit. So as I said before, in the submixer, you have these two channels here, the kick trig and the snare trig. To access the one-shots panel, it's down here on both the submixer and the mixer beside the reverb button. It's the one-shots pop-up window. This is what's going to appear. The left side is for your kick drum one-shot, and the right side is for snare drum one. This is what it looks like when no one-shot is currently loaded. Have a little drag and drop section where this grid is. So I'm just going to drag over samples, and then it's instantly loaded. I'll do the same for the snare. Go. And it's instantly loaded. Oh, but if I did the wrong one, what do? Click the X here, and it's going to unload that one shot proper one. So it's that easy. The triggers option right here allows you to pick what articulation the one shots will be triggered on. The kick hit is the only kick articulation, so you can turn this on or off. On the snare side, you have the option for both center and rim shot articulation, trigger the one shot. You can select one or the other, or you can have both off, or you can have both on. Both off and off on the kick hit would basically just be bypassing the one shot without having to adjust the volume on the fader and without unloading the sample. So that's useful there. The next option for the parameters here is threshold. This allows you to choose the threshold of what MIDI range is going to trigger that specific one shot that you've loaded. So if you have a really powerful one shot, that's gonna just be like a cannon snare drum or like a huge kick drum that you want for impact, and you don't want it to play on every single hit. Here, you can adjust the threshold to the range of MIDI values that you want it to play at. So because this kick drum is really powerful, I'm just setting both the min and max to 127. So it will only play when the kick drum is hitting at 127. If I go to my MIDI down here and I change some of these to 126 or anywhere below, even though it's still activated, the threshold is 127, so it won't play. Same goes for the snare drum. You have the threshold option there as well. Both the kick one shot and snare one shot have a fader to adjust the volume, along with the meter reading for the volume. You have a pan option and a tune option for the one shot that is independent of the kick mics or the snare mics, which is super cool. Allows you to tune just the one shots to blend them in with whatever Powerkit's snare and kick are at. You are also given an independent polarity invert, which will help really align the low end of the kick samples and help the phase correlation with the snare. So if you need to invert those, you can do that real quick, and have a solo and a mute option for both the kick and snare one. By default, they are routed to their corresponding channels. Kick is routed to the kick, and the snare is routed to the snare. If we pop out of the one-shot samples really quick, you can see that the adjustments I've made to the fader on the one-shots are relayed over to the submixer and vice versa. So if we change the volume here, you will be able to see the volume change in here, which is useful. You are given independent reverb sends and you are given independent envelopes, also with a bypass and an active button. When you click on the one-shot grid, you're going to be able to hear the one-shots that you've loaded. All right, so what I've done here is I've quickly just adjusted some of these one-shot parameters. I inverted the polarity of the kick. Threshold is at 127. Threshold for the snare is at 127. And what I've done is I've blended them in a little bit. And in this MIDI down here, I have alternated the snares from 127 to 126. So you'll hear the one shot and then you'll hear no one shot. And the kicks, you'll be able to tell when the 127 kicks in because you will hear the one shot start to trigger at the threshold. So obviously that's an extreme example, but it's just showing you how powerful and intricate the threshold function is. So next up is the settings menu, which includes two tabs, which is MIDI mapping and velocities. So we'll cover both of those here. Up at the top left here, you first have your MIDI mapping preset. By default, Powerkit's default settings are loaded, the kit. And if you click on Powerkit, you are very quickly able to adapt the Powerkit MIDI map to a whole bunch of other popular drum plugins, and that will allow you to plug and play Powerkit on certain MIDI sessions that are using those MIDI maps by just quickly selecting whatever they were programmed. They're not going to be 100% accurate, but it's going to get you 90-95% of the way there, and then you can just kind of quickly adjust to whatever it needs to be. You can click the menu and you can clear all of the current note learns. You can export your MIDI map and you can also import your MIDI. So down here you have the MIDI mapping interface. Everything is grouped by the kit element, and then you can see all of the articulations for that kit element. By clicking on the articulation underneath the kit element, you can hear what that sounds like. You can do that for all of them. And you are able to use the learn function to activate a MIDI keyboard selection. You can tap on your keyboard and it's going to automatically learn the note. You disable it by clicking again. And you now have the option to do 2 notes for each articulation. That helps with drum programming, e-kit stuff. So having that additional note is very cool. So that's integrated in Powerkit now. Down here we have a mute all cymbals that by default isn't on because we don't want accidental muting of cymbals to happen if you're throwing MIDI that isn't optimized for Powerkit in. So if you want to use this function, just select a MIDI note that you know is going to be the mute all cymbals button. And that is going to allow you to have an extra additional control to hard cut all cymbals. This helps before like breakdowns or transitions into like a chorus or whatever's happening. Sometimes you have everything sounds great, but like there's just a little bit of a cymbal decay when like a little bit of silence is happening. The mute all cymbals is where that comes into play. Sometimes the chokes on certain cymbals may be a tiny bit too long for what you're looking for. So now you have ultimate control of every single cymbal duration by just one little MIDI note. All right, next up in the settings menu, we have the velocity curves. Here we have a global curve and we have the individual kit element curves right side. This page also includes all of the CC controls for hi-hats, the aftertouch functionality, and also it has bypass and activate buttons for all of these curves. So you can set your curves to wherever you like them, kind of A, B, and C if that's what you're looking for. The reset all button will just turn that off, and the global curve will adjust all of them. Down over here on the hi-hat section, which is the large bar, you have a Learn CC button, an Invert CC button, a CC Learn 1 and 2 for hats. And then on the section below, you can type in the hat CC number, the hat CC position, hat CC note 1, and hat CC note 2. So for any people trying to use Powerkit for e-kits, your additional options and configurations are this page here. All right, next up is the routing for Powerkit. We're just gonna go through this from, square one. I'm gonna start with Kontakt not even loaded, and I'm gonna show you the fastest and easiest way to get started with routing Powerkit. And then I'm gonna show you some different alternatives to route Powerkit. So here we go. So here I've got my virtual instrument track in Logic set up with MIDI on it. I'm gonna load up Kontakt on it first. So I'll click the little instrument icon here. We're gonna go down to Kontakt 8, and there are a few multi-output options here. I usually just want the max amount of stereo tracks that I possibly can have, even if I don't need them all. I know Logic maxes out at 25 stereo, so I'm going to click on that. It might be a different amount for the DAW that you're using. Firstly, I am going to just close out a Kontakt really quick, and I'm just going to expand all of these tracks at the bottom of the software instrument channel with that little plus icon. Just click it until there's 25 stereo tracks that are being made. And then we'll go back to Kontakt. I'm going to close this little content browser with this X right here. And what we're looking for is the outputs, which are down here. If they aren't down there for you, you may have to click View and enable outputs. If outputs aren't on that list, you may need to jump from the default view to the classic view. So click classic view and then outputs, and you can enable them, and you'll see if it's enabled by the check mark here. So now what we're going to do is just look down at these outputs. So we picked 25 in Logic, but obviously there's not 25 here. So that's going to be a problem. So what we're going to do is, built into Kontakt, there's this little menu right here, presets batch configuration. Very simple. We're going to click that. We're going to go down to factory, and we're going to go over to stereo 32X, no auxiliaries. And we click that. And now we have 32 outputs of Kontakt being sent out. What I'm going to do now, and what I recommend you should do, is go to the presets batch configuration, click it, save current output section state as default for all formats. There we go. Now what's going to happen is, if I go to Kontakt and I reopen it in 25x stereo multi-out, and I go to look at my outputs, that configuration of 32 stereo outputs is now the default. So now you don't have to worry about doing this ever again. That was a one-time setup thing, and you're good to go. Now when we load up Powerkit, it's going to be able to see all of the outputs for Kontakt, and Kontakt is going to be properly sending them in order to. So we've loaded up Powerkit now, and we have all of our outputs down here. I'm going to go to the mixer. I'm going to just go down to the kick option. And now we're going to be able to see all of these outputs that we have created in Kontakt. So now you can route it in any way you want. What we've done is we've made an output macro at the very top here, route all channels to sequential outputs with reverb. What that's going to do is make all of the tracks inside of Powerkit, route properly in order to your DAW without you having to manually do all of them. And now if I click play, we have multi-out working perfectly. The reason that kick is not outputted to output 1 is because that is the default channel for both of the reverb. This allows us to also have the reverbs sent in multi-out, just in case you want them. It's better to have them, not need them, than go, I wish we had that. So in this case, Reverbs are on track 1. So output 1 correctly routed. That's the reverbs. 2, this should be the kick, which it is. All the routing is done that fast, that efficiently, and we have a full multi-out drum kit. Now let's say that you want to revert from multi-out. You just want to work in stereo. Too many things going on. You're not a fan. Sure. So let's unmute all of these. We'll just mute back to stereo. All you have to do is click this again, route all channels to master. You're now doing the stereo out version of Powerkit that fast. All right, so if you're a power user and you want the most amount of control of Powerkit with all the individual microphones outputted in multi-out, we have made a configuration file for Kontakt that will do this for you pretty easily. So on the screen now, I'm gonna put the directories that you need to drag these Kontakt config files into. And when you put these files in the corresponding directory, depending on if you're on Mac or Windows, the next time you load up Kontakt, you will be able to access these. And I'll show you what these do now. All right, so now that we have put those configuration files in the correct directory, what we're going to do is load up Kontakt. We're going to go to the output section again, presets, batch configuration, go to user, and we are going to go multi-out advanced with reverb. That has every single mic source of the submixer and mixer outputted to multi-out along with reverb. That is the one that I recommend you use. These other options are described in the documentation if you do wish to use those. So let's load that up. Now that we've done that, you are able to see the names of the outputs inside of Kontakt. So we're going to now load up Powerkit and we are going to start routing. So now, because we want the individual mic sources, we go to the submixer, and all we have to do is click on the routing menu underneath the kick in 1 to start the process. And we just match all of these names that are currently loaded inside of Kontakt to the correct channel. So we'll just match up these names and then we're done. So I'll do that really quick. All right, so now those are routed. This does allow for the kick triggers to be routed out and the snare triggers, so you can include your one-shots in this output routing, which is very useful. For the room high and room stairs, keep those routed to room ambient, simply because we are out of stereo tracks in Logic. It hits 25 as a cap, so those two are just blended together. Now we can move on to the mixer. So I will do the exact same process on the mixer. Keep in mind, now that we have routed the submixer, kick, and snare, the mega bell from ambient, those don't need routed anymore because we've already done. So what we're going to do is skip over the kick, skip over the snare, start at rack tom 1, go through and route all of these. I'll do that really quick and show you what that looks like. So now that the mixer is routed, we've skipped over the kick, the snare, the mega bell, and the room ambient. We now are sending all of the tracks inside of Powerkit to multi-out. So I'm going to solo the drum kit right here, and we'll just click play and make sure that everything's working as intended. Great, so that works perfectly, and we can double check all of these channels by simply just going through and soloing in our DAW, but reverb still lives on output 1, and now we have ultimate control of all of the mic sources, our DAW, independently, all through multi-out and Powerkit.